Your children's future depends on decisions being made right now about the Philippines. Decisions most Filipinos don't even know are happening. 10 global powers are quietly reshaping the archipelago's destiny, determining who controls Asia's most strategic crossroads. Some have influenced these islands for centuries. Others are making their move today. From the South China Sea to Washington and Beijing, the Philippines has become the silent battleground of the 21st century. The nation at number 1 holds more power over Filipino lives than you could imagine. Number 10, Spain. For over 300 years, Spain didn't just influence the Philippines, it created the very foundation of Filipino identity. The Spanish colonial system established Christianity, introduced Western governance structures, and built the social hierarchy that still echoes today. Spanish missionaries didn't just spread religion. They systematically replaced indigenous belief systems with Catholic doctrine, fundamentally altering Filipino culture forever. The encomienda system extracted wealth while Spanish galleon trade routes made Manila the vital link between Asia and the Americas. Even today, Spanish influence persists through language, legal systems, and religious practices that shape daily Filipino life. The peso, Catholic festivals, and family structures all carry Spanish DNA. Modern Spain maintains cultural influence through education programs and language institutes, quietly preserving connections that date back centuries. Spanish companies invest in Philippine infrastructure and energy projects, maintaining economic ties that most overlook. Their approach reveals a sophisticated understanding. Cultural legacy provides lasting leverage that military force cannot achieve. Why does a former colonial power still matter in 2025? And what does this mean for nations with deeper historical claims? Number 9, Netherlands. The Dutch East India Company represented pure capitalist ambition, and the Philippines stood directly in their path to Asian trade dominance. During the 17th century, Dutch forces launched multiple military campaigns to seize Philippine territories from Spain, recognizing the island's strategic value for controlling Pacific trade routes. The Dutch didn't seek colonization, they wanted commercial monopoly. Their attacks on Spanish galleons and attempts to establish trading posts in Mindanao revealed something crucial: whoever controls Philippine waters controls Asian commerce. The Dutch understood what many miss today. The Philippines isn't just a country, it's a geographic choke point. Modern Netherlands maintains this commercial DNA through major investments in Philippine agriculture, shipping, and renewable energy. Dutch companies like Shell have deep roots in Philippine energy infrastructure. The Netherlands also provides significant development aid, quietly building influence through economic partnerships rather than military presence. Their strategy proves that small nations can wield disproportionate influence through economic integration and technological expertise. But if the Dutch still see strategic value in the Philippines after 4 centuries, what are today's superpowers planning that makes this look insignificant? Number 8, Germany. Germany's Philippine involvement began during the Spanish-American War, when Kaiser Wilhelm II nearly triggered World War I over Philippine territories. German naval forces positioned themselves in Manila Bay, ready to claim portions of the archipelago if America faltered. This wasn't random ambition. Germany recognized the Philippines as the key to Pacific dominance and Asian trade access. The German plan included establishing naval bases and commercial outposts that would challenge both American and British influence in Asia. Though Germany ultimately backed down, their strategic assessment proved accurate. Controlling the Philippines means controlling Asian commerce. Modern Germany approaches Philippine influence through economic investment and development partnerships. German companies dominate renewable energy projects, automotive manufacturing, and technological infrastructure across the archipelago. The Goethe Institute spreads German culture and language, while development aid creates long-term dependencies. Germany's current strategy reflects their historical understanding. Economic integration achieves what military occupation cannot. Their persistence across different political systems reveals something important. German strategic thinking views the Philippines as permanently valuable. What does this tell us about powers that never left? Number 7, Malaysia. Malaysia's influence over the Philippines runs deeper than most realize, and it's intensifying. The two nations share maritime boundaries, ethnic connections, and Islamic heritage that creates natural alliance opportunities. Historically, the Sultanate of Brunei and various Malaysian kingdoms maintained tributary relationships with southern Philippine territories, establishing precedents for modern influence. Malaysia's strategic interest focuses on Sabah, territory they control but the Philippines continues to claim. This territorial dispute gives Malaysia permanent leverage over Philippine foreign policy and regional positioning. Modern Malaysia influences the Philippines through economic integration, Islamic cultural programs, and joint security operations against terrorism and piracy. Malaysian companies invest heavily in Mindanao development, particularly in Muslim-majority areas where cultural connections run deep. The Mahathir-era policy of supporting Philippine Muslims created lasting diplomatic influence. Malaysia also mediates Philippine peace processes, giving Kuala Lumpur unusual leverage over internal Philippine politics. Their influence extends through ASEAN leadership, where Malaysia often speaks for Philippine interests in regional forums. Malaysian strategy demonstrates how neighboring countries can achieve influence that distant superpowers struggle to match. But what happens when regional powers align with global rivals? Number 6. Russia. Soviet influence in the Philippines emerged during the Cold War, when Moscow recognized the strategic value of challenging American hegemony in the Pacific. The Soviet Union didn't seek direct control. They wanted to fracture American alliances and create alternative power centers in Asia. During the Marcos era, Russia quietly provided military equipment, economic aid, and diplomatic support that gave the Philippines options beyond American dependence. This wasn't charity, it was strategic disruption of U.S. Pacific dominance. Modern Russia under Putin has revived this approach through arms sales, energy partnerships, and diplomatic alignment. Russian weapons systems now equip Philippine forces, creating long-term maintenance dependencies and military relationships. Russian energy companies invest in Philippine oil and gas exploration, particularly in contested South China Sea areas. Putin's Russia offers the Philippines something unique: partnership without lecturing about democracy or human rights. Russian cultural programs and educational exchanges build people-to-people connections that could mature into deeper political alignment. The relationship reflects Russia's broader strategy of challenging American alliances worldwide. Russia proves that global powers don't need geographic proximity to influence the Philippines. They just need to offer what others won't. How many more options does this create for Filipino leaders seeking alternatives? Before we reveal the top 5, I want to hear from you. Which global power do you believe influences the Philippines most today, and why? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because the remaining countries might surprise you. Number 5. Great Britain. British influence in the Philippines traces back to their brief occupation of Manila during the 7 Years' War, a forgotten episode that revealed British strategic thinking about Asian dominance. The British East India Company recognized the Philippines as the missing piece in their Asian empire, capable of linking Indian Ocean trade with Pacific commerce. Though they returned Manila to Spain, British commercial influence continued through banking, shipping, and trade networks that connected the Philippines to the broader British Empire. The English language itself became a tool of influence, introduced through American education, but reinforced by British cultural exports. Modern Britain maintains influence through the Commonwealth connection, though the Philippines isn't a member. Shared legal traditions and English language create natural partnerships. British companies dominate Philippine financial services, mining, and telecommunications. The City of London remains a major source of Philippine government bond financing, giving Britain leverage over fiscal policy. British Council cultural programs and educational exchanges create elite connections that influence policy decisions. Post-Brexit, Britain sees the Philippines as crucial for their Global Britain strategy, seeking enhanced trade and security partnerships in Asia. Britain's enduring influence demonstrates how former colonial powers adapt their strategies while maintaining leverage. What does this pattern reveal about the nations ranked above them? Number 4. Japan. Japan's relationship with the Philippines carries the weight of history and the promise of redemption. Japanese occupation during World War II devastated the islands, but post-war Japan transformed this dark history into comprehensive partnership strategy. Japanese war reparations built Philippine infrastructure, established industrial capacity, and created economic dependencies that persist today. Japan recognized early that economic integration achieves what military conquest cannot: lasting influence through mutual benefit. Modern Japan provides more development aid to the Philippines than any other country, funding everything from transportation infrastructure to disaster response systems. Japanese companies dominate Philippine automotive, electronics, and manufacturing sectors. The Japanese yen fuels major infrastructure projects, while Japanese technology modernizes Philippine industry. But Japan's strategy goes deeper. They're building the Philippines as a counterweight to Chinese influence in Southeast Asia. Japanese defense cooperation includes maritime security training, equipment transfers, and intelligence sharing that gradually integrates Philippine forces into Japan's regional security network. Cultural influence through anime, technology, and educational exchanges creates positive associations that overcome wartime memories. Japan's transformation from destroyer to developer proves that historical guilt can become strategic advantage. But can soft power compete with what's coming next? Number 3. Australia. Australia's influence over the Philippines represents one of the most underestimated power relationships in Asia, and it's rapidly expanding. Geographic proximity makes Australia the Philippines' closest developed democracy, creating natural security and economic partnerships that transcend political changes in both countries. Australia's strategic interest stems from a simple reality: Philippine stability directly affects Australian security, trade routes, and immigration patterns. Historical connections run deep through shared military cooperation, educational exchanges, and the massive Filipino-Australian community that creates permanent people-to-people bonds. Modern Australia approaches Philippine influence through comprehensive partnership that includes defense cooperation, economic integration, and diplomatic alignment. Australian mining companies dominate Philippine resource extraction, while Australian agricultural technology modernizes Filipino farming. The Australian Defence Force conducts regular joint exercises with Philippine forces, building interoperability and strategic trust. Australian development aid focuses on governance, education, and disaster preparedness, investments that create long-term institutional dependencies. Australia's unique position as a middle power with great power resources gives them flexibility that larger nations lack. They can offer partnership without threatening sovereignty, support without demanding submission. Australian strategy recognizes that controlling the Philippines isn't necessary. Influencing Philippine choices achieves the same strategic objectives. The Australia-Philippines relationship reveals how geographic proximity and shared values can create influence that rivals traditional great powers. What happens when this kind of partnership faces pressure from global superpowers seeking exclusive loyalty? Number 2. United States. America's relationship with the Philippines begins with conquest disguised as liberation and continues today through military agreements that shape regional power balance. The Philippine-American War from 1899 to 1902 established American control through brutal military campaigns that killed hundreds of thousands. But Americans were smarter than previous colonizers. They introduced education, democratic institutions, and economic development that created genuine Filipino-American connections. American colonial policy built infrastructure, established universities, and trained Filipino leaders who maintained pro-American orientation after independence. The Clark and Subic Bay bases gave America strategic control over Southeast Asian sea lanes for decades. Modern American influence operates through the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, which grants U.S. forces access to Philippine military bases without permanent occupation. American military aid, training, and equipment sales create dependencies that influence Philippine defense policy. The Mutual Defense Treaty obligates America to defend the Philippines, but also grants America influence over Philippine foreign policy decisions. American companies dominate Philippine telecommunications, energy, and financial services. Cultural influence through Hollywood, education exchanges, and English language creates deep social connections. But America's Philippine influence faces new challenges from rising China and evolving Filipino nationalism. Here's what's changing. Younger Filipinos increasingly question American dominance, while older generations remember American partnership benefits. The test for American influence comes down to a simple question: can partnerships survive competition from powers offering better deals? Number 1. China. China's influence over the Philippines represents the most comprehensive transformation of regional power dynamics in centuries, and most Filipinos are only beginning to understand its scope. What we're witnessing isn't ordinary geopolitics. It's the systematic integration of the Philippines into a China-centered economic and strategic system that will define the archipelago's future for generations. China's approach combines historical precedent with modern innovation. Ancient tributary relationships between Chinese dynasties and Philippine kingdoms established patterns of economic exchange and political deference that Beijing now recreates through contemporary methods. The Belt and Road Initiative transforms these historical connections into concrete infrastructure that physically binds the Philippine economy to Chinese supply chains, markets, and financing systems. Chinese companies now manage critical Philippine infrastructure from telecommunications networks to energy production. The digital networks connecting Filipino families, businesses, and government increasingly rely on Chinese technology and expertise. Chinese financing builds the roads, bridges, railways, and ports that will carry Philippine commerce for decades to come. This creates strategic dependencies that make economic separation from China practically impossible without severe disruption to Filipino daily life. The South China Sea dispute reveals the geographic dimension of Chinese strategy. Beijing's military expansion in disputed waters establishes facts that gradually normalize Chinese control over Philippine maritime territory. Filipino fishermen already require Chinese permission to access traditional fishing grounds. Philippine energy companies need Chinese approval for exploration projects in their own territorial waters. Chinese influence operates through economic incentives rather than military coercion, making resistance appear economically irrational. Chinese tourism supports Filipino communities. Chinese investment creates Filipino jobs. Chinese loans fund Filipino development projects. This approach makes Chinese influence appear beneficial rather than threatening, even as it systematically reduces Philippine strategic autonomy. The Philippines faces a fundamental choice: accept integration into a Chinese-led regional system with significant economic benefits, or maintain strategic independence with potentially severe economic costs. Beijing's strategy doesn't require this choice to be made explicitly. Economic integration makes it gradually inevitable.